Good morning slash evening slash afternoon slash the middle of the night. Welcome to the internet where time doesn't matter. You're listening to Recruiting EQ, episode number 74. Almost 75. Crazy. And today's episode is how to survive in staffing, goals, layoffs, and more. We had a nice, you won't see this anymore, but we had a nice Jeff Probst, the host of Survivor, the popular reality TV show, which I think was apt for what we're looking at in recruitment. And we have our featured guest, Lee Andresi, here today. Lee, thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And of course, Julie Robinson is joining us too. Thanks, Julie. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Good. I think that Lee, you decided to come back after the previous episode. I think that you weren't wildly happy about because I think your dog was barking or something like that was happening, right? So thank you for coming back.
Well, thank you again for having me. I don't even remember how long ago was that.
That was a while, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When was that? When was that, Rich? Do you know?
Half a year ago, 6 months ago, 4 months ago. Time means nothing to me anymore. I'm sorry. This is why that intro to the show is that, because like since COVID, what's time even?
Yeah, that's
We're
true.
joking. We have a client who's in Australia, and we're joking about it because it's like she's like the Tuesday meeting, and we're like, aren't we meeting on Monday? Oh yes, that's true. You live in the future. It is the same meeting. The Tuesday meeting is the Monday. Okay, sorry. It's like Abbott and Costello. Anyway, here we go. Do you guys want to do a quick around the room intro and a bit about what you do? Should we do that?
Yeah, let's do that. Lee, go for it.
Hi, again, Lee Andrews. I am actually a senior consultant through the Reddit group. Also have a couple of side gigs going on with a TV show with Luca Schellenbach and myself, and we're also doing some coaching, individual group, and company coaching and consulting. So having a blast.
Thanks, Lee.
Brilliant. Yes. So Julie Robinson, and still doing the rec to rec stuff, which is, I can't believe this. Even you say that this is almost 75 episodes of Recruiting EQ. This is we've been also almost running this business for 10 years. It's like, where did that actually go to? Can't believe it. Anyhow. So so rec to rec, and we place people in the staffing profession across Canada, also some parts of the US, focusing particularly on sort of northeastern states, and also Dallas. So some Texans thrown in there. So that's what we do.
It sure is. And wondering why this sounds different than other episodes, you're looking at what is now a prop microphone because my sound card died at the beginning of this episode. It's the joy of doing a live podcast every week. So next time I'll have a shiny new one to show off. But there you go. So I'll be tiny sounding compared to normal. There you are. Too bad. What are you gonna do? To our point though, which is Lee, you and I were having a sort of a LinkedIn conversation about what we could tackle next because there's no shortage of topics to talk about nowadays in staffing. And you mentioned the surviving aspect, which I think is very apt for right now. But before we get into specifics, just in a general way, how are you feeling about the market or the climate right now in staffing recruiting?
Well, like everything, what goes down usually comes up. Just like what goes up usually comes down at some point. So it's incredibly important for people to manage their career and think about that as they develop their career journey, right? So career management, I think, is something that a lot of people just don't think about. When it's good, it's great. When it's great, it's good. And then it becomes not so good. And then, oh my God, what happened? And yet the signs are everywhere. So I think that the market is going to be picking up. We can see some signs of that, right? You guys are getting more recs.
Yeah. For sure.
But I will tell you that surviving is going to look a lot different going forward. It's going to take a different skill set, a different mindset, and it's also going to take managers and leaders and owners to think differently as well. So if they don't, there's plenty of other options out there for people to get hired.
Yeah, for sure. Julie, how are you feeling about all this?
About the market?
Yeah, and everything that Lee is saying, basically.
Everything that Lee's saying. Goodness.
Let's do it.
Goodness, big question. I think that the market is definitely getting better and has picked up from our perspective, and I think that we're normally on the sort of end of the end of the queue for seeing the pickup or seeing the signs, because it happens at the coal face and then we sort of react afterwards. Or our clients react afterwards. So the majority of our clients are staffing firms. Hopefully people know that. So we have been over the last few weeks, and sort of, sadly, not that as far as my heart is concerned, this is a bit of a week-to-week thing. So it's a little unpredictable, but I think that the market over the last couple of weeks has been tremendously better, actually. And I think a few indicators of this, which are very good signs, I would say. For the last probably year, we've had nothing but new business at various levels, positions that we've been recruiting for our clients. So that's been the hot need. So therefore, people are worried about their pipelines of clients, where they're going to get their business from. We have had very, very little recruitment need, so actual sort of fulfillment of the business that's brought in. And we've had next to zero, frankly, account management, which is the sort of the glue in the middle and the jam in the sandwich. So over the last, and yeah, we have had a couple of recruiting roles, so that's not entirely true, but we've had an influx, I would say, of recruiting only positions over the last couple of weeks, and we've also seen some account manager positions too, which is a definite shift. And a change, and great news as far as we're concerned. So that means that the whole spectrum of positions are becoming more viable and available in the market, which is an absolute change, and I think a change for the better. Thank goodness. Thank goodness, absolutely. So it's not all about new business anymore, which is phenomenal. So, and I'm not sure what else Lee said. What else did you actually say, Lee? So I think you said that this have to change, right, for people to be surviving.
Yeah, can we talk? Let's just have this conversation. So that is, again, one of those things that I've been doing this for decades, more decades than some people have been alive. And I will tell you that this is not new. What we're going through is not new. We're constantly going through these ebbs and tides. What's different, though, is that this time new skill sets are required, in addition to having the old skill sets are still needed. And so when you've got an industry that has literally devalued itself because of MSPs and VMSs, which are now a way of life, and you have to figure out how to do business with them. But when you have devalued a business as much as ours has, you've got to be able to have not just that emotional intelligence, but you've got to become quite business savvy. You've got to become industry savvy. You've got to be technology savvy. Now you've got AI onto that, because how are people hiring is the question we need to be asking ourselves as an industry. So as a staffing industry, the one question that we are just not asking out loud is, how are people hiring other people? Is it through a pick list? Is it through, Upwork or Fiverr? Is it through referrals? Is it through online job? It's through all of those things. But the question is, where is the concentration? So until the staffing industry really thinks about itself as a workforce solution cultivator and not just throwing people at job orders, we're going to keep devaluing ourselves. And so, these technology capabilities could one day take over and just say, we'll take the internal recruiter on a contract basis instead of hiring them. And when we have peaks and valleys, we've got to be having these tough conversations. So what you're seeing now, Julie, in your business was the after effect of realizing that I've got to grow my existing clients. I can't just bring in new business and expect that pipeline to always be full, because we're going to have attrition of those clients. I've got to focus on account management. I've got to focus on recruitment leads to think of new ways and help companies hire better for longer term fulfillment. And when you've got long-term staff, you've got loyal staff, you've got loyal customers. And that's another piece that's missing. And so I'm glad things are picking up, but we've got to solve some of these bigger problems. And that's what I'm working on, and that's really in the basics, Julie. That's in, how do you talk to a candidate? How do you talk to a client? What kind of conversations do you have with a candidate once they're on assignment? What kinds of conversations are we having with clients when our candidates are on assignment? What's that relationship? Where did we fit? Where did it go? It's not even happening anymore, Julie. I see everybody typing emails, standard emails, and they're even worse. It's automated emails. How you doing this week? Great. Wonderful. Call me if you need me. Bye-bye. What is that?
It's not a relationship, though. That's for sure. Right. I mean,
what is that? There's no business value into that. So naturally, companies are saying, I'm getting this person, I'm paying, the companies are saying, I'm paying this hourly fee. And what am I really getting for that value? Well, you're getting an automated email asking how the candidate is doing. That's what you're getting. So I am on a mission, Julie. You know that. I have been on a mission to elevate the quality of support and services that this industry provides. And yet we just can't quite get there and stay there. And let's talk about numbers. Let's talk about numbers. My average GP per FTE was $1,800 a week. Who does that anymore in staffing? Where do you see that? My average markup on my last contract was 165%, not 65%, 165%. And it's because people like you and I, Julie, we set the tone. And Rick, we set the tone of what that relationship is going to look like. Either the client will value us or they won't. And I'm not afraid to say, you don't value me. I'm going to go somewhere else that a hiring manager in a company does value what I bring. I am not going to shoot myself in the foot over price. Not.
You know what? I just I won't name who, but a potential client literally this morning said to me, or emailed me actually, and said, I've noticed that for this type of hire, I probably he didn't even use the word competitor, but he did say, I think that it's likely that I'd be able to get these services for 15 to 18%. I'm like, okay. Okay, off you go then. Thank you. If you want that, or if you want to use a generalist staffing firm, then you're very welcome, because those are the prices that somebody would potentially go to. But if you want to use a specialist organization who has, in my opinion, a lot to offer, then the prices, as we state in the terms. So that's just, so anyway, just to your point there, it's literally commonplace every day, and the value that I think that we should and do portray isn't necessarily portrayed at all levels by everybody, which then causes price dropping, and also price asking for, dropping, I should say, asking for price drops, and also price dropping. So it becomes very transactional and completely devalued.
Have we not been doing that to ourselves since, and I've been in this since the 1980s, so very early 80s.
Yes. So have I, actually. So have I. And when we talked about, or Rick, on the caption that you put there around sort of survival and like, how do you survive in the staffing industry? And I thought about that, and I was like, okay, well, what is it? And there's lots of soft skills that you need to survive in this industry, and in any industry, but in a people-based industry, there are lots of soft skills. But really, when you think about it, it's the relationships that you are able to build from day one in every conversation and every aspect of what you do, which you then take with you through all of the ups and the downs. And like you, Lee, I mean, obviously we've all been through COVID. I've been through 2 recessions, in staffing, 2 recessions, neither of which were very pleasant at all. But we're still here, so we could say that we're surviving and survivors in this industry. But it's based on the relationships.
So Julie, let's define that word relationship, because I think that's fluffy, right? relationship doesn't mean anything unless you can sink your teeth into it. Like, like a big piece of lasagna. When you cut into that lasagna, you are having a relationship with every layer, with the ricotta, with the sauce, with the pasta, with the mozzarella. It's a relationship that you're having with, I am so hungry right now. So anyway, the thing is that relationship is defined by value. What are you bringing into that relationship to make that other person value having a relationship? And that's what I talked about earlier, is, are you having meaningful conversations that are based on business? What is happening to the business? Are you able to negotiate? Are you able to pull out and draw information that whatever's causing pain to that candidate or that hiring manager to help solve that pain? Are you really digging deep into that? Or is it fluffy? How you doing? How's it going? How's the car? How's the lasagna last night? That's not going to get you that relationship. You've really got to dig deep. And make sure that you hit that plate with that fork so that they come back for the next bite. Wow, is this a food analogy or what? So this is why, Julie, that I am the biggest proponent for storytelling, using a CAR, STAR, PAR, whatever it is, and quality checks. When we have people that are placed on assignment, reference checking, quality checking, getting those stories, finding out what the impact is, that's the relationship. I've got clients that got promotions and got raises because of the stories that I was able to tell them about how we impacted their business.
Yep.
It just, are we doing that anymore? I don't see it. And that's what it takes to survive. When you are of true help, you earn that relationship. You become a trusted advisor. It's not just an enemy relationship. Let's make that very, very clear. You've got to be able to put some teeth into that. To you, Julie.
This is the Julian Lee show. Rick, have you got to?
I know. Poor Rick. he's over there to the left.
Yeah, it's like, Rick, I'm sure you can add a lot here. You know what, when I was thinking about it in terms of relationship and what does a relationship mean to me, I didn't define it as you've just defined it. I defined it as the relationships in my world are the people who would do something if I asked. So, and I don't often ask, but if I do ask, then they're the people that would do something for me when there's nothing really in it for them. So that is part of how I would define a relationship. And I think the other thing too is I feel a relationship to me is someone who I have synergy with and chemistry with that I don't actually have to really define. So, and I would say that you're in that category, honestly, Lee. So I know that when I need something from you, I don't have to do a big old, oh yeah, like I just say, Lee, I need this. What do you think? Like, can you help? Can you not help? And you're like, yeah, or sure, or not, or what, like, and we can pick that up from week to week or year to year or even sort of decade to decade. But I know that you'll do that for me. So I would say that I have a relationship with you, and that will see me through. And I have that with not a gajillion people, because you can't, right? But I do have that with special people who I would call my community, and that is how I survive.
But they do, to earn that level of relationship, there's a history. Yep. It didn't just happen. So you and I worked together. Yes. We went to conferences together. We went to trainings together. We did management training together. We did management stuff together, and we got to know one another. So that it was earned, right?
Yes, it was earned. It was earned. But I think that there's an immediate, well, for me, anyway, you're going to tell me, no, there wasn't, Julie. But I think for me, there's an immediacy around the chemistry, right? So I feel the people, right? So
absolutely.
It's if that's not there, then they'll never be the relationship for me.
That's very true. That's very true. I repel people, Julie. My energy is a natural repellent. It doesn't repel mosquitoes, but it repels human beings. And I'm going to have a whole talk show on that. But yeah, because I attract people like you and Rick. Right. You and Rick are very forthright. You're very forthcoming. There's no fluff. There's no. You are who you are, and if that's who you are, then we're going to attract each other, right? But if there is any level of fluff or any level of false behavior or bravado, whatever thing,
Yes.
I repel them. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
but you don't want them in your group or your close circle anyway. Right? So,
No,
me neither. Yes, absolutely.
There's a comment that came in, a couple of comments, which are a little on the pointed side. And I know I have my opinions, but I'd love to get you guys' opinions about this, just to read it off for those who are listening. So this person asks, how are you folks identifying and confirming that the
individuals you are providing to clients are truly qualified candidates / individuals versus just qualified candidates / individuals? He also asks another question. Stories are great, but data doesn't lie. What data do you folks have that dictates a higher fee? So this is a great question, Julie. If you don't mind, I'll start off with it, because every story that you and I have ever talked about has always included data. That is the result. If the results don't tie to the problem that we're trying to resolve, and the problem should very clearly define the metrics and the outcomes that you're looking to improve, if those aren't included in your story, then your story is fluff. And it doesn't mean that you have to drive revenue. It can mean that you improved customer satisfaction. It can mean improved that you got awards and recognitions. It could mean a whole host of things, but you've got to define success the instant you start building that story. Does that answer your question, TJ? Hi, TJ.
We weren't naming people necessarily, but sure.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Disclaimer.
TJ and I know each other.
Julie,
now we do. Yes. Well, I mean, however strong or not right this actually sounds. I mean, as an example, I literally just jumped off an interview with somebody before this call, and unfortunately, the last two positions that they've had haven't worked out so well for whatever reason. But the position before that was for a long period of time. So what I asked him to do was to give me some data and some facts around the successes that he had, which hopefully will swing the vote to this is someone who should be hired versus what happened in the last two positions that he currently, that he was in. So, and he didn't have that, and I hope that if he's listening to this, he doesn't mind me saying this. He didn't have that data at his fingertips that he could give to me. So my message to him was, you need to give it to me, because what I'm going to put you through is what you would and shall face at your next interview. So if you're not prepared, you're not going to get the job. So you need to be prepared for that. And whether it's me or whoever it is, preparing in a sales specific role, you've got to have your data because otherwise you're not going to get a new job.
Yeah.
There's something in there too, is that, so it was the one piece I found very interesting in the second half of the comment, where he says, what data are you guys getting to validate that the candidate is of higher quality, something along the lines, I had a glitch, so I don't see it anymore, but to warrant charging a higher fee. That's an interesting conversation starter to me, because I am of the mind that, like Lee, you said before, that recruitment is a value-added service. And the value that we add is ourselves and our ability to form relationships and to get the intangibles. So I think that the difference in fee isn't related to the data. I think you need the data to get the person the job either way. Like there's no data, there's no interview, there's no nothing, right? That's just a basic level. But I don't think that the collection of the data that the candidate has, that candidate's going to either give or not give the data if they apply directly without us. It has nothing to do with us in a way. Yes, we need to do our due diligence, that's for sure. But I think the extra fee comes from us as being able to probe and gauge and understand and attract and persuade and give context and all these other things that are the intangibles. That's what warrants the fee. That it's not, the data part is just a bare minimum for a higher, even zero fee. That's my opinion.
Yes, absolutely. And I think tapping into an organization that may charge differently, and whether it's low or high, that's all, it really doesn't matter. It's like, who says it's high or low? It's just more than a comparison, but I also could be less than someone else. So it really is relative. I think that the point is, who do you want to do business with, because of what you think that they're going to bring you. So, and if you choose to do business with me or with Rick or with Lee, this is the price goes along with that. So that's who you're buying because of how they can articulate and also demonstrate what they can bring to the table. I'm not saying that we're the highest or most expensive or the cheapest. In my situation that I mentioned earlier, I was just giving an example. So give an example of what my perception of the differences between who I think that they were talking about and the services that I know that we can provide. So, but more than that, I think that when someone is talking about a fee and the value that they bring, it's really fundamentally in this business, their network. Right. So if you don't have a network, you are worth as diddly squat. If you do have a network, then that has tremendous value, which is and has been leveraged and built and nurtured for decades. So we still like this. I mean, you could say that you are part of my network, Lee. I've known you for 20 years. So that is that has value, that has credibility. We're able to do some things like this. We're able to talk to my network, whatever. I don't mean to justify my fee. That's not what this is about here. But I think that hopefully answers the question, or the two-pronged question that this fellow had.
So I'm going to add on to that. Yes, and the way that I confirm the data, which is one part of his question, is through reference checking. And before everybody says, dumps on reference checking, because a lot of people don't believe in reference checking, the candidate must share their story with me to the nth degree, meaning that I can tell their story without them being in the room. And the reference that they provide me has to be able to confirm those outcomes. And it has to be at least 2 people within their former workplace that confirms those outcomes. Let me tell you how powerful this is. A person that I met with 2 weeks ago, she didn't even realize that she brought in over $3 million worth of business to her company until I started asking her what was the average pay rate, how long was the assignment, what was the fee for those people, and what period of time did that cover. It came out to over $3 million. Her manager didn't even know that. Now, had I represented that person would have probably started about $15,000, $20,000 more a year than where they might be now.
Well, yeah, and so the depths of conversation is huge, and to add, because our friend has written a couple more comments here too, but to clarify, and I apologize, I think I misunderstood the point that I was on before. He meant our data, like when we're negotiating fee, what data do we give for our own successes to clients in order to justify paying the higher fee, which makes more sense. So I apologize, I misunderstood you before.
Yeah, that right there, that just telling those stories about how we have helped people land these jobs at higher rates based on their past performance, that is the metric that people like me, who are talent agents, and Julie, and Rick, I'm trying not to forget you on this, Rick.
I'm trying not to be forgettable.
I'm doing my very best. But that's how we justify our rates, that we dig deep to find the information that's going to help improve their business outcomes. Write that down. When you're an agent and you're representing somebody, I don't care what industry it is, if you can pull that information out of a candidate, you can verify that information, quantify that information, and share that information with your client, you give your client business insight. And you give your client a bigger solution than just filling a seat. You can also have conversations with your clients by saying, no, that's the wrong person. How many times have we done that, Julie? No, that's not who you're not looking for a new business development person. You need an account manager because you're working on 10 accounts that have 1 FTE in them.
Yep.
You need an account manager who can sell.
Yep.
Well, that kind of data is
important. My heart, that just makes my heart flutter. Those are the kinds of conversations that we should be having that we're not having.
It's true. And it's not just a question of the number of placements or whatever else, but it's and the word quality is so amorphous too. But like it's the personally data that I give or the type of placements that I've made. And by that, I mean people who are heads of, who are doing something new, who really solved a problem, who are in a new territory where they had no success before, who were outside of what the profile was supposed to be, but actually fit the need. So like that extra bit of doing things that brings insight and creativity and then shows success for they're on.
That's
Those
right.
are the kinds of scenarios that I think justify the higher fee, as opposed to just if you're looking for a vendor to simply be a vendor and not a partner and just be an order taker, you can use an AI all day long. The AI is a lot cheaper, by the way, than 15%. You know what I mean? If that's what you want. If you want no perspective, you don't want to have a conversation, you don't want the person to be a partner, an extension of your company, give you feedback, give you insights, then 15% you're paying too much. You can use an AI instead. Like
and you know, the analogy still stands. I've been using this since I first started, but if you want to go to a general practitioner for your kidney disease, you knock yourself out.
Yeah, there you go.
Knock yourself out.
Yeah.
And if you want that general practitioner to take away, to do LASIK surgery, knock yourself out.
Yeah.
Go give it your best shot, because you're not going to be able to see and you're not going to be able to process liquids in your body. So, but give it a go. Give it a go.
You need dialysis, but just go to your GP.
Just go to the GP. Just go to the GP. Same thing goes for. There's something that speaking about surviving, I think the most important thing is if people want and love and are passionate, ask your why. Why are you in the staffing industry in the first place? Why do you want to be a recruiter? Why do you want to represent people? What is your why? And if your why is only to become, mega rich, you're going to have to take a whole different type of approach to your job and your career. But if you really and truly love seeing the dots connected, and you get that high when you've placed somebody who succeeds in a role and who's still there year after year, those are all really good reasons. Survival skills mean that you do need to understand business. You've got to build your business acumen. It means that you've got to also build your communication capabilities. How well you communicate online, offline, in person, in front of a group of people, and how well you can communicate inside the client's organization from the receptionist to the C-suite. That is going to help you. That is going to help you determine how you're going to navigate your career in this industry. And what you can achieve, right? Based on what you want to achieve and based on that why. GP is go GP or go home. It's true. GP is what drives business, right? But GP isn't just about GP. It's about the ability to have the financial ability to pour more money into your business and grow your business and expand it. So GP is critical for us. It really is. What are your thoughts on that, Rick?
Well, Lee, thank you for asking.
For including you.
But it's funny, we talk about data and GP and all that, and it's like, yes, those are key indicators, right? But just because someone who is a business developer had X GP at company A does not necessarily mean they will have the same GP at company B. And we've been doing this since 2023 in a difficult market. Great looking candidates, and it's not a diss on them either. But the thing is that not all agencies are the same. Building a book of business is not the same everywhere. And sometimes people learn kind of the hard way, that they'll move somewhere else and realize, oh, wow, I'm having a tougher time of this than I thought, right? So I think that ignoring the human elements or not digging deep to find out, how did that GP come about, really?
Right.
And having the perspective to understand both clients and both environments and go like, I think it's going to be a lot harder than you realize, to the candidate too, to tell them, hey, maybe you shouldn't jump ship because this is actually going to be a longer ramp up than you realize. Again, it's not just consulting the client, right? But the candidate. I think that it's those extra intangibles are priceless. Priceless. Right. You're preventing someone from making a huge mistake, or you're changing their life, right? And not just listening to what's on paper and saying like, you're a salesperson, you have more than 500K GP. Do you want to go to this job? You can make a bit more money. Oh, cool, do it. But then and then they fall flat and they get fired in 6 months. That could have been prevented when we dig deep and whatever else. And that's where the extra fee comes from, not wasting everybody's time with these mismatches.
And I think we should talk about the hiring side of the desk, right? What are companies asking for now in terms of candidates, candidate qualifications? Are they laced with biases, or are they focused on performance? Right. So I know, Julie and I were talking in the green room about some clients are asking, for things that are just unrealistic. They're unrealistic. And this is where the candidate and the recruiter, if it was one of us, we would have to evaluate how that client came to set that expectation for that role. And that's another big part of what we do and why we're good at what we do, because we can help that hiring manager almost redefine or at least assess where their original thoughts are coming from. Is it based on bias, or is it based on whether or not this person truly can do the job, wants to do the job, has the chops to do the job? When you do that, the candidate has a different perspective and the hiring manager then has a different perspective. So that's a big benefit of working with a recruiter who really knows what they're doing, especially inside the staffing industry. What do you think about that, Julie?
What do you think about that, Julie?
Yeah, what do you think about that, Julie?
What do I think about that? I think it's I have to believe that people don't have intentional bias for any sort of malicious reason. I think it's often based on prior experiences, and then others get tarred with a similar brush, which is unfortunate. So I think what we have to try and do is educate wherever we possibly can, that what, this isn't Billy Bob that did whatever Billy Bob did, or the situation is different and people are all different. So I think that you just got to try and give people the benefit of the doubt, but it's hard sometimes, right? So some people are pretty, especially I think if you've had multiple experiences which are in a similar grain, then you tend to be general in terms of comments and whatnot. But I think that most often people have the right intent, which is we want to make sure that someone is successful in this role for our benefit and their benefit. And those are the people that we want to work with. And so it's just sort of getting there sometimes, which might take a little bit longer.
Yeah, I agree. And I believe that people really are on the good side of the coin 80% of the time.
Yeah.
That 20% of the time, those are the hiring managers that I walk away from. I will never forget a hiring manager telling me two things. Number one, people in general are stupid. That was his belief, quote unquote, on a conference call. A member of the staffing industry, a leader in the staffing industry. People are stupid. That was his number one. And anybody who gets laid off for any reason is not qualified to work. I said, thank you so much for considering me to help you. I can't. I just cannot. I not only can't help you, I won't help you, because I will not put somebody inside that kind of an organization. That's a recruiter that other recruiters can trust. Other people in the staffing industry can trust.
I think on the layoff thing, I think that's a bit of a hot topic, because obviously there's a lot of people who have been laid off. So sadly, that is the situation. And when hiring managers or potential hiring managers say that we don't want to hire someone that's been laid off, I think it's sadly because of the generalist or the general situation, which is often the people who are laid off. Or the first people that are laid off are the people who are either newer to the organization or are the lower performers. So either through their ability or because they just haven't been there long enough. So I think that is generally fairly true. But I think once we get beyond that and start picking that apart, there's a lot of people that have been laid off for lots of other reasons, which is probably more to do with the organization that they're working for than the individual that's been laid off, sadly. And I think that everyone needs to open their minds to that, because you know what, it could be me and it could be you and it could be anyone in any of our families that this happens to. So being open-minded and considerate and thoughtful about this, I think is very important, just from a human perspective. But I think that there's a number of different reasons why people could be laid off, and it's not because of necessarily poor performance or new last in, first out type of situation. It could be that the client or the company that they're working for seriously does have or is in financial distress. And the only way to survive, and unfortunately this is survival of the fittest, the only way for them to survive is to cut folks and to cut money, and they have to find the money from somewhere. So often that could be someone who is a higher salaried type person, because you could cut one of those and save two more junior folks that are less, on a lesser salary. But it doesn't mean that the more senior person is worse. They might be better, but the financials or the maths just doesn't make sense, or it makes more sense to do it in that type of way. So that's just one way, which unless you're in the inner circle of that organization, you'll probably never know for sure, because who's going to say, oh yeah, we're having like financial troubles. So how is someone expected to articulate that at an interview, or going, it's like no one's really going to give you the real answer. So I think that you have to be open-minded about that if you're interviewing somebody that has been laid off, as to what actually was the reason, and let's sort of try and read through the lines of what could have been happening here.
Absolutely. Spot on. So many reasons. So many reasons.
Yeah, so many reasons. I mean, I'm sure that you guys can think of others like off the top of your head, but that's one that I would talk about. And clients have actually said that to me too. So we get to hear that. Billy Bob again, sadly for Billy Bob, has been laid off again. Billy Bob has been laid off, and this was the reason, like we literally couldn't afford them, and they were, a higher salary bracket, and it would have meant that I can actually bring in other people who are more junior, lesser salaries. So it's a management of money, and that's it. But someone has to take the fall, sadly.
Yeah.
On that same topic of the layoffs, I mean, and Lee, you mentioned this before too, the staffing industry is going through a lot of changes in general. Part of it is a reaction to what happened with COVID and that pendulum swinging back and forth. But part of it is just the evolution of the market. There are layoffs that are happening this year, which are funnily almost a bit controversial in a way, because it seems like people who have historically had high base salaries, some of whom are great performers, are really good at their jobs and are rather senior, are getting laid off for the reasons, like you said, Julie, is that there's organizational restructuring happening, that it's like this position is no longer valued at remotely even the same amount of money that this person's being paid right now. So we're going to cover it different ways. We're going to have somebody else there that we're doing different things. And it doesn't look like a lot of those agencies are going to go back, so that this person has now been laid off, but the competitors are doing the same thing. So they're not going to go to a competitor necessarily and get the same base salary. And it doesn't look like that position will be valued at that same amount anytime soon in general. So like, what about these kinds of layoffs where there's just sort of like a paradigm shift in what people are paying for certain higher up roles? Do these people go out and start their own agency? Is it just that business savvy, like you were saying, find value elsewhere? Like, it seems to be kind of a hot topic this year, because there's been a lot of that this year, I think, in staffing anyway, from what we've seen.
And just at the senior levels, are you seeing that? Or are you seeing that throughout the enterprise?
Well, it's taken its time to, the wave has moved upward. I mean, I think that, in 2023, particularly in things like IT and life sciences, wherever else, we saw it start at the bottom and then move, and it's been moving up. And now it's come to even people who've been with organizations for long periods of time, who were making maybe 150, 200 grand on the base salary and comp above that. Doesn't really seem like, not only are people not paying those base salaries anymore, it seems like the people who are earning those base salaries and performing are getting let go, and other things are happening. Not all of them, but a lot, enough that it's a topic. It certainly comes up in my conversations.
I think that sorry, Lee, did you want to answer that?
No, go ahead, Julie.
Well, I think that, but it's not entirely. But I think that what's happening there, I think that is about maths. It's about folks who are more senior, who on the face of it are not producing, right? That they're not at the coalface saying, okay, let's get some orders in or let's fill some orders. So they are the more operationally focused person who is dispensable, short-term dispensable. Right, so short-term dispensable, long-term problem, because you need those people, and I would argue that you probably will be hiring back at some point in the fairly near future the person that you potentially laid off. You could potentially, hire back at a more junior level with a less of a salary, but you've also blah blah blah. There's pros and cons to all of that. So I think that is a cost-cutting, immediacy. I wouldn't say knee-jerk reaction, but it's look, we've got to find some money. This is generally an organisation saying we've got to find some cash. I mean, we know of organisations that have made mass layoffs. Lee and I, particularly, is we've got to find some cash because we just haven't got enough money in the bank to float these people for however long it's going to take. So we got to do it, and we've got to make some changes, which I think also is quite useful for some organisations when they want to actually cut some long-termers who they know could be who are on the verge of retiring or have been in the business for 20 years or 30 years or something like that. I think that shedding folks that are more senior at a more costly salary level when you can replace them at a more junior level, especially in staffing if the accounts have been won. So the perceived hard work has been done, and now it's maintenance. Maintenance can be done by someone who is perhaps a bit more junior that doesn't have the high price tag. So I think it depends on what level we're talking about here, but I think there's this is in different shapes and sizes, but fundamentally it's about money.
It's always about money, Julie.
Yeah, it's always about money.
It always comes down to money, one way, shape, form, or another. And this is why it's important. I got a call from another candidate who was shopping for a job who wanted $300,000 as a base to be a regional manager in the staffing industry. They were earning $500,000, $600,000 above that in their commissions. And it was within tech, IT staffing. And I said, good luck, God bless. I said, see how that works out for you. Here's what's going on in the industry right now. These jobs are being replaced by A, B, and C. The organizations, and this is where it's really important that when you are looking for a job, it is imperative that you research that staffing company and understand what their long-term goals are, their near-term goals, and what they're doing to get there. So, and if you see restructuring going on in that organization, meaning layoffs, or where positions are shifting, it's important for you to understand why they're making those shifts. Are they going after a different type of business, a different industry? Are they looking to eliminate a practice within their staffing organization? I know many are really rethinking the whole MSP thing. And so some companies are saying basta. Other companies are saying not basta. We're going to figure out how to make it profitable. Right? Not basta means enough, but we're going to figure out how to make it profitable. And it's a totally different business. So now you need totally different skills, and you need totally different people who have been embedded in that arena for many, many years to help you figure out how to navigate that. So I agree. I think that you just need to understand what the changes are. My concern is that if people in the staffing industry don't understand the industry well enough, can't articulate the impact that they've made, let alone what they want to do next, they are going to struggle. To survive, you need those three things. You have to know what you've done. You have to be able to articulate it. You have to be able to show business impact. You have to be able to prove business impact. And that's when you can start driving your own career versus other people driving your career based on what's going on with them. Right?
Agreed. And that's when you'll land. When you'll land your new job, or be somebody that is highly sought after with multiple offers, rather than being left, out in the cold. Frankly, so and that is the type of conversation that we have. And I'm not trying to promote us here, but that is what you will get from a qualified staffing agent that charges X amount of dollars for their services, because they are advising candidates and clients and having those types of conversations every hour.
And this is what we train on. So this is why our organization's partner. So this is exactly what we want to train, hiring managers to do. And this is exactly how we want to train new hires in the staffing industry to have those skills of data gathering, storytelling, and communicating. That's going to take you over the top. It's what we do.
And you both raise interesting points about the money factor, about people being laid off. I mean, if someone in a managerial role, director role, was making X amount of money, there is only just the pie of what's being made, and the pie is sliced up among everybody who's involved. So in some cases, it seems like some agencies, and we've seen people talk about this, Julie, you and I, whatever else, feel like they are underpaying their producers. And so if they're going to have to give a bigger chunk of the pie to the producers, they can't be giving as big a piece of pie to the people at the top. Like, it has to come from somewhere. It's not going to come from thin air. So if you realize that you need loyal producers who stay longer and bill, then you need to give them other tiers of commission, but those percentage points have to come out of somebody else's percentage points, right? Because it is only just 100%. So it's just a lot of change, right? Structural and organizational change, and it's not all malicious or whatever either. Like you're saying, sometimes it's bids come up where it's like, we want to pay our recruit our 360s more. So this is what we were aiming at.
Unless you bring your own pie.
Yeah.
If you've got experience in the industry and you can bring your own pie, or you've got a whole bakery, right? And you got lots of pies, or you got little tarts. I mean, I got a pie, I got a tart. What do you want? The tart or the tie? The tart or the pie?
To cannolis. It was always going to happen, Lee, wasn't it? Cannolis enter the conversation.
For sure. Cannolis, tiramisu, a little tartufo here and there doesn't hurt.
Yeah. And again, there goes your value. You've just increased your salary because you brought a whole pie. You didn't bring a slice of pie, you brought the whole pie. And so you could talk to them during the hiring process about how you believe that pie should be sliced and what chunk you should get. But, who's got the pie is going to win for sure.
Yep.
But if you don't have any pie and you're new to the bakery, what do? You start on the ground floor and you learn how to bake. You put the apron on. Why is this always about food? You put the apron on, you get that back there with the chef or the pastry chef. You roll up your sleeves, you figure out how to knead that dough, and you start baking. Once you have perfected baking that pie, then you will have pies. You see how that works?
So many good pies. I'm starving.
So many good.
I'm all starving, yes.
Yeah. Before we call it, there was one more piece of the comments that we were getting in there, and sadly this gentleman has left now, but thanked us for reading his comments, and of course we will always with pleasure. But brought up a couple of times predictive hiring tools, which I assume he means different kind of AI tools for matching someone to a job, or like this personality assessments and stuff like that, as being a necessary part of it. What do both of you guys feel about those and their place in the whole market now?
Julie, you might want to answer that first. You're far kinder and more diplomatic than me.
I have a sense of what the answer is going to be. Julie, why don't you?
I think, I mean, they've been, we used to use these donkeys years ago. I think that they were actually first, was it like the 40s or something? Anyway, they've been around for like forever. I don't know what the sort of like the latest and the greatest are. I mean, there's lots of iterations of all of these things. I think that they are indicators. For me, nothing more. That's my best and final answer to that one. Lee?
Like I said, you're much more. So I've used predictive index. I've used DISC. I've used many. So many. And they all come out to the same thing. They're not going to tell you. They focus on, there's three parts to this, right? Julie, there's can do, will fit. And a predictive index type of thing will tell you what type of communications or what type of a team player they'll be, what type of, what environment they'll do best in, and what type of job that might, align with. It still takes a human to look at all of the components. So that assessment is going to be only one part of that entire evaluation as to whether or not that person's going to succeed in the job. The one thing I know for certain is that if we ask the right questions during the interviews, capture the proper past performance to understand what they can do, what they have done, what they want to do, we're going to be very, very close, so close to determine where that person will be successful in their next role. The indicators just serve to either confirm or potentially ask another question, right? So if they show something different on the assessment, I might go back to that person and say, this is very interesting. Let's talk about that and how these findings align with what you told me, right? But it is not the final say. It is not the final decision maker as to whether or not I would hire somebody. It may lead to another question, but it certainly isn't the final authority in my decision.
Well, yeah, like this gentleman mentioned, his exact words were at some point, a staffing agency's gut feeling is not a strategy. A gut feeling is really just hope.
Yeah.
But I would counter to that if the options are not just a gut feeling and using the tools, there's a whole array of other things to do. I don't think either of those sound like a strategy to me. I think it's a whole lot of pieces.
We've known for decades that gut feeling isn't the way to go, unless, of course, you are standing immediately next to me and my energy repels yours. Go with that gut feeling and run. Just leave. Go. You don't need to be next to me any more than you need to be next to me. That is fine. Go with your gut. Other than that,
do the rest of the work that you're supposed to do, and don't just
That's right. Do your job.
Everything else that you're supposed to do, actually. Yeah, exactly.
Do your job.
Exactly. There was a fascinating little thing that happened lately with someone who did one of these predictive sort of hiring tests and scored way off, like opposite to what the profile was. But this is not someone new to staffing. This is someone who is running a full desk elsewhere at his third agency in 10, 12 years of experience and is a top biller. So go figure. I mean, technically, this is a guy who shouldn't even be in staffing, but he's had a whole career where it was a headhunt. He's not looking for a job, so he'll just stay where he is and continue billing. So again, it's an indicator, yes, but it can't be the only factor, and that's proof positive that it's like, okay, well, just stay and keep making money in staffing what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what, too? I think that, I mean, Lee and I have done these for years with many people. And I remember distinctly sort of a particular group that I had responsibility for. And it was that the profile of selection should have been X. And one of the most successful people on the team was Y, and almost opposite to it. So it really made. I don't know that there's, like I say, a one size fits all. I think it's an indicator, but it's also a bit of a bias, right? Once you actually put this profile together and say, well, you should probably hire like that, it then is a bias in some ways. It's like, well, what about that guy over there that's actually very good that could do equally as well, if not better, but they just choose to employ different skills at work or something like that. So it's a bit of a minefield, this one.
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
Interesting.
We've got him back now saying that he's not saying it should be the only step, just to be fair. And I apologize, man. I mean, if I were not trying to roast you here, by the way, I really appreciate all of your comments because this makes it super interesting. And none of this is in any way a slight against you at all. They're very, very valid and interesting points. But yes, he did sort of come in to say, I'm not saying it's the only step. He just thinks that it should be a first step to try to help guide you. And that does make a little bit of sense, actually. I agree.
Well, having made it the first step, that makes an initial qualifier, which could disqualify qualified people.
Well, it shouldn't.
We need to be careful about that as well. It just needs to be part of the puzzle. Yeah.
If it guides the questions that come next, if you think that someone's good, then I think that's a great idea.
I think, Julie, though, to your point, does that type of an assessment create bias? In my mind, what it does is coming from a user experience standpoint, right? So if you look at building a persona, that's what it creates. It really creates more of a persona. And then does that person match that persona? Does that persona have bias in it? It depends on.
We don't know. It depends.
It depends. Yeah, it depends. It shouldn't, because it should come from past performance from a group of individuals to build that profile in order to conduct that, assessment. But that's
I think I think it's how it's done in the first place, which I don't know that any of us, it's like where did the ideal profile come from, right? So it's just,
Yeah.
So if there's a story around that is logical and unbiased, then fair enough. But I think oftentimes it's not. It could just be, like some Billy Bob again. Here's Billy Bob again that happened to do very well. Someone did a predictive index on them, and this is the profile that we now think that we should hire up to. So I think it depends how thoughtful all of these things are.
Yeah, and to quote Jenny Finch, right, who is passionate on this topic, and I think it's a great insight, is it's like if your hiring is only informed by what worked in the past, that is a bias that you're limiting what you could grow and achieve in the future if you looked at different profiles.
Love that, Jenny Finch. Love that, Jenny Finch. She knows what she's talking about.
It's the carbon copy. It's like, so I think that I think also when we're talking about team formation, it's having the same of all of the. I mean the DISC assessment that was supposedly good. I think in one of the organisations that I worked for was a high ID, like so a high I and a D. So influencer and then dominance was sort of like fast behind the I. But if you've got all of that. If like 100% of your workforce are all IDs, it's like now you've got like you can't actually get anything done because everyone's talking so much and everyone's trying to like bloody influence everyone. So it's like it's you've got to have a mix, else you've just got the carbon cutouts. It's anyway. That's my point. I think a good solid mix, as long as it's not complete controversy or a catastrophe with the profiling that you have, is actually probably the better way to go.
Well, there you have it. I feel like we've solved all the problems. We know exactly who's going to survive and not on this season of Survivor. No, but thank you so much, Lee, for being here, and Julie, of course, also for being here. I think that was super fun and insightful, and look forward to having you back.
Thank you for having me again. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
This was fun.
It was fun. Thank you, Lee.
All right, thank you.
So tune in every Wednesday, by the way, anyone who's listening, every Wednesday at noon EST, or you could listen to it after the fact. Again, timelessness of the internet. You can listen to it anytime you want. Do you guys realize that? That's amazing, isn't it? If you do see a podcast location, by the way, where this is not available, do let me know, because it's supposed to be everywhere, and I will get that remedied right away. Thanks all, and see you next Wednesday.
Thanks. Take care. Bye.